Hi, Angelique. How you doing? Okay, so I realize I need to add digital wireframes. I'm slightly behind, and to be honest, overwhelmed. Your feedback. No problem. Don't be overwhelmed at all. I mean, it's not a difficult project at all, Angelique. It's just pretty time consuming, and it really requires a great deal of organization. But it's by no means difficult. So I think it's really just a matter of just hunkering down and really hammering this stuff out, and getting to a level of organizations that represents a good user, developing a good understanding of your app where the user looks at your process book and says, okay, this is making sense, everything's making sense, there's no real questions associated with the development and implementation of your mobile app, specifically in these early planning stages. So let's go ahead and jump over and take a look. So you got your cover. You start out with the purpose. I wouldn't start out with the purpose. Well, actually, I take that back. What is the purpose? You start out with the problem. So that's where we start. We start out with a problem statement. The statement of intent, the definition of the problem, and then the purpose, the solution for the defined problem. So that's good right there. I think if we could use a little bit more detail, I also think your type is really large in comparison to the size of the page. So again, I would add a little more detail to the problem and a little more detail to the uh, uh, app solution proposal. Really naming your app specifically and saying how this app is going to rectify the problems defined in the problem statement. Do you see what I'm saying? Instead of saying, in general, the solution is to deliver food. Really, we're not looking to deliver food. That's not the solution. The solution is to deliver food in a expeditious and inexpensive way, based on what I'm reading. So the solution isn't to deliver food. The solution is to deliver food in a more expeditious and inexpensive manner than the competition, right? And to me, I'm gathering that's the main intent of the app itself. So then we go to target audience. Well, for functions and features, you want to get into functions and features of your app. Okay, so you've got the app solution proposal. Then you want to get into the functions and features of your app, and then you can start getting into the research findings, specifically target audience, three main functions of your app, and then competition. So you want to list the three main functions of your app at the beginning, right over here, before you even really, somewhere in the presentation or near the presentation of the target audience, you also want to include the three main functions for the app, and then the competition, which is, you've got competition right here. So we'll talk about that in a second. I would place the competition in with the target audience and the ideation of the problem, only because that kind of constitutes the target audience, the three main functions of the app, and the competition kind of constitutes the ideation of the problem, right? So group those together. Again, that's target audience, three main functions of the app, and then the competitors. Okay, so target audience, this is good. These are great visuals. Nice job there. One thing I would recommend is this. It's very important that when you use data in a visual like this to represent actual data, you want to give your source. So in other words, where is the source? Where did you get these statistics? Where did you get these numbers that you created these charts from? And then also back this up with a written summary of what these charts are actually telling us. And that should cover the target audience. So then we move from the target audience to personas. We got two personas. I recommend three. Now, from the persona, you're going from persona to scenario. This, again, as I said, competition should be placed up above with the ideation of the problem elements. So let's take a look. These personas look pretty good. Good job here. As I said, I recommend three. Competition, I wouldn't place these you're grouping the competition together in one page, and I wouldn't do that. I would give each competition a separate page where you analyze three different criteria. You give the pros and the cons for the functionality and features of each of the competitors, the visual design of each of the competitors, and the usability of each of the competitors. And that means you're going to have to go into these sites and really study them, which I'm sure you already did, just to ascertain what the pros and cons are of, as I said, again, the functionality and features, the visual design, and the usability. I also recommend mocking up the interface for these so the viewer gets an idea, and we can see that done right here. Here's a competition. And this is that treehouse example. So you definitely want to use this as a reference point for your work. And this is one of the things why I say, you say it's getting, I think you said you're getting overwhelmed. But you've got this treehouse thumbnail. I mean, this treehouse process book that shows you everything. It really does a great example. So, as I've been recommending since week 2, I highly, highly recommend you use this as a basis for your presentation. So, anyways, comparative analysis. As you can see, we've got they name the competitor, give the functionality and features, the visual design, and then pros and cons on usability, while naming the competitor and giving an indication of what their user interface looks like. Okay, so I would recommend some sort of a configuration close to that. Okay, so we go to scenarios. This is really difficult to read. I would write out these scenarios, storyboards for these scenarios, and then also you just write out a written detail, a detailed paragraph of what's going on in the scenarios, because right now this is a little difficult to read. Sketches are a little difficult to see as well, but this is almost really, I'm a little concerned that it's not very readable. So you want to back that up by providing some written descriptions. Wireframes, now don't forget, you've got, the wireframe should be sketched out. Every screen in the app should be wireframed. Now these wireframes right here are, they're pretty good. It's really difficult to see though in terms of this presentation. You may consider cutting these out, scanning them, and maybe increasing your levels or adding a levels adjustment layer to increase the contrast. And I'm talking about Photoshop. Scan it, open it in Photoshop, use a levels adjustment layer to increase the contrast so that it's a little bit more visible. Again, wireframes for all screens. Then you have your paper prototyping, and these are examples of all of your paper prototypes. Okay, so one clarification. Paper prototype should include the screens that you use for testing. Wireframes should include all screens in the app. Okay, so wireframes are not sketches, are not the sketches you use for your paper prototypes. They're two completely different things. So you can see wireframes over here. These are wireframes. Okay, they're just a depiction of all screens in the app. And there should, I'd say there should be, typically there would be 8 to 10 pages in your app, right? At this beginning stage. Now there's going to be more, but in this kind of study stage, there's going to be 8 to 10 pages. I would recommend at least 8 to 10 wireframes. And again, wireframes are simply a depiction of the screens with no real functional testing going on, as we can see here, where these screens are set up as paper prototypes giving specific tasks associated with each screen. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? See the difference between paper prototypes and wireframes? If you don't, shoot me a quick email, because it's really important that we get that down. Okay, now you've got some photographs of your user testing. What you want to do here is you want to describe exactly what's going on in the test. So typically, let me show you the example here. Usability testing. Okay, so right here is this 2 detailed paragraphs on what is being accomplished with user testing, and these are the tasks associated with the user testing. And you need to include these in your process book so we know exactly what are you asking the user to do in these images. At that point, so you give your list of tasks. Okay, then you give a detailed summary of these tasks, and you'll use that in your these findings are what you'll use to create differences in iterations of the paper prototype, so that if the user is making a mistake, you would address that mistake in the new prototype, find out if that works, if they're making the correct decisions, then you would implement that change into your clickable your click-through prototype, which subsequently would reflect in the final design of the user app when that goes to engineering stage, which of course we're not doing in this class, right? So you really want to give the user testing, so describe, you should have 4 or 5 tasks that you're giving your users. Okay, so, okay, show me how you would, where you would click to log in. That would be one task. And then in your summary, you would say, task number 1, logging in, ask the test subject to log in. And then the next task, okay, set up a user account. So the next task 2, set up a user account. And then task 3, just like we see right over here, right? Right over here, task 1, login. They will be provided with a username and a password, okay? Task 2, create a profile. They will need to click the profile button at, do you see what I'm saying? So they're giving the task and describing how it is accomplished. Okay, so that's what you want to do here. You want to give the specific tasks that you have asked the user to complete while performing these functions within your app. Okay, so it looks like, let me see, as far as what we need. Okay, so so we need a statement of intent, a definition of the problem, the app solution proposal, the 3 main functions of the app. Okay, then your research findings, and in terms of target audience and competition, the 3 main functions. Then you need your 3 personas, your 2 scenarios, storyboards of the scenarios. Okay, user task flows is something you might want to include, and that is how, based on the storyboard, what if you a task flow would be showing the screens that the user would click, the series of screens and the functions that the user would perform to accomplish any given task. Okay, wireframes for all screens. You could possibly, if you have time, digitize those wireframes. Photographs of paper prototypes. Summary of tasks for usability testing. That's what I was just talking about now. Images. Then a written analysis summarizing the results of user testing. That's very, very, very important. You need a page giving the written analysis of summarizing the results of the testing sessions. Digital mock-ups of all screens. That's this right here. Digital mock-ups of all screens, so that we have a good idea of how your app will look when it's designed. And then you have the summary of design elements for the process. You have your final click-through prototype, your project summary, then your bibliography, including your image and research sources. Now, at the beginning of week 5, when that time comes, at the end of week 4, I'll post an announcement, welcome to week 5, which is giving you all of the requirements for things to include in your process book. Okay, so just keep working and don't get frustrated. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. But it's really time to start looking at getting this thing completed, because during week 5 we start a new project. So week 4 you're going to be turning in your click-through prototype. Then week 5 you're going to be turning in this process book. So we really want to start wrapping things up here. Because week 5 we introduced a new team project. Okay, so again, please, any questions at all, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you very much.